Hello and welcome to another episode of Statford Bridge, Chelsea by the numbers. Chelsea opened their Premier League season with a 0-0 draw at home to Crystal Palace. Not the best game you've ever seen in the world, but it wasn't as bad as people think. Okay? Off the rip, it's a 1.4 to 1 XG game on McClockbot. Now, a vast majority of Crystal Palace's XG comes from one chance that was credited to Maxence Lacroix, 0.32 on McClockbot. It's about 0.4 on some of the other models. And this is not a real chance. Lacroix didn't get a touch. It was recorded as a shot, but all the Opta data in post removed the shot from the shot map. So that is not there. And he was also offside based on the replay they showed. So if you call this like a 1.4 to 0.6 XG game, I think Opta has it 1.6 to 0.6. You call it in and around there, that's a pretty reasonable performance for at home against Crystal Palace. I think being a goal better than Palace at your place is very reasonable given the defensive quality that Palace are as a team. Now, we saw a couple things that I think were interesting in this game in terms of long-term trends, but we saw a couple things that were maybe not worrying, but are things to watch for the future. The first thing is we saw Chelsea do their usual thing where they play against the team who defends with 5, where they build in a 3-diamond-3. So you have the back 3. Josh Achimpong was the middle center back. Trevoh Chalobah was the left center back. Reece James formed the 3. Cucurella becomes the left 8 in a diamond. Caicedo is a 6. Enzo Fernandez is the right 8, Palmer is a 10, free to go wherever, and then you have wingers holding width. Now, the thing that worked in this game was that in the second half, that was not what Chelsea did. In the first half, Crystal Palace were very well prepped for how to handle this build shape. So if we pop open the tactics board, Palace defend in a 5-4-1. And the way they approached is that when Chelsea got into their 3-diamond-3 is they would push very aggressively with the outside players of their 5-4-1 and press almost 5-2-3. This is exactly how Fulham played Chelsea in the middle of the season last year, where Chelsea lost that game and had a real hard time playing out the entire game. And now in theory, you may say, oh, but like the middle center back can play Enzo and Cucurella and really break lines that way. Now, the problem with this is, one, Palace's midfielders are very good at covering ground. So what often happened is that when pressure was applied in one direction, you would have them manage accordingly, like this, and it becomes very difficult. Or you would have like even this moment, and Chelsea were unable to hit the channel in behind, where like the outside center back jumps all the way to the 8. And the real thing that worked very well for Palace is that when they started here, the timing of their jumps was perfect. So there was never really the opportunity to get someone moving late. Now, if you looked at the first half, you would have looked and said, okay, Josh Achimpong, middle center back, I don't know if this is the one for us. I have some concerns. I'm not really worried at all. I thought he had a very good game defensively. I thought he managed Mateta, who is a very, very, very dangerous player. Like if you look at Mateta, he gets 0.31 XG from 2 shots. One of them is not very good. One of them is okay. Like, you're pretty happy with that as an outcome, I think. Eze puts up a decent number of XG and XA, but it's mostly just like him bombing away from distance, from terrible locations. Like, you're pretty fine with that defensively. In possession, I think the criticism that is fair is that Achimpong was a little bit conservative as a passer, but I think in like the first game he started in a long time, that's a very reasonable place to be. And I would certainly rather him be too conservative as a passer than him just like giving the ball away a million times. So that's what it looked like in the first half. In the second half, what changed is we saw Caicedo drop in to build a lot more, and it would end up like this. And really, it became almost just like 4-3-3-ish. And what worked very well was Palace weren't sure how to deal with like organic fullbacks, like natural fullbacks, in particular with how their jumps happen when they form the shape. And this is actually not dissimilar from how Chelsea approached the second Palace game last year, where it was the only game that I went back and looked. It was the only game that I had on record that Chelsea built with a 4 for at least a half, where they built with a legit back 4. Now, it's not really a legit back 4 because it's one of them is your defensive midfielder, but it was a legit back 4 against Palace last time, where it was 2 center backs, 2 wide natural fullbacks. They got to the same shape here. And what happens now is that as you apply pressure from the 9, if this player wants to jump, it's much easier for you to go around and get access to the final third. And what happens if you look at the first half versus the second half is Chelsea are kind of unable to generate a high level of threat other than like a nice start and then like a decent moment around the 20th minute. But if you look at like the baseline level in terms of the like match momentum plot on the McClockbot game plots, you have significantly higher base levels in the second half where Chelsea were just they were significantly more able to apply pressure and then keep pressure with possession. And a huge part of that was Acheampong's carries, where he was a lot freer to dribble now because he's part of a pair instead of the only guy. And there was still, once they got into the final third, it was still very much a 3. But you saw this shape, and it really disrupted their ability to jump, because now if he goes too wide to take this away, it opens this up, and do you end up like this, and it opens here, and then the weak side player has to go, and now when you find the switch, you can go and get whatever dangerous moments you want. And so Chelsea basically didn't turn the ball over in the second half. If you look at the... and I should have pulled this up, and I'm a bad podcaster. If you look at the first half versus second half splits for Chelsea, 1.6 to 0.7 for the whole game. First half, 0.6 to 0.6. Second half, 1 to 0.1. Like, they just got nothing in terms of transition in the second half. Chelsea were significantly able to reduce significantly the amount of transitions that Palace got. It was a really, really good tweak from Maresca. It is, again, a thing that we have brought up, that like Maresca's tactical solves are actually pretty good. Now, across the board, you look at the whole game and you're like, okay, it's broadly fine. What is cause for concern and what is good? Well, in terms of good, I thought Chelsea had an okay balance of like slow, progressive, break you down, get into the final third, and let's go from there, versus faster transition attacks. That is borne out very correctly, I think, in the number of shots and fast attacks versus slow attacks that they got. It was about even. I think one of the things that is somewhat concerning to me is that actually Chelsea got a lot of joy when they chose to play direct into João Pedro or into Liam Delap. I was going to say Rory Delap, into Liam Delap when they played direct, and getting players underneath worked really, really well. They just didn't do it that much. They had very low second ball wins compared to Palace. That is somewhat concerning to you. And the other part of this is like, I had concerns towards the end of last season about the shot volume versus shot quality debate, where you have this trade-off at all times of how good are the shots you're taking versus how many of them are you taking. And if you look at the shot maps, Chelsea, when they have faced teams who defend deep, have been very okay with ending possessions with very low quality shots. If you look at the first half, not only did they take a huge number of low quality shots, they're from bad locations, but also a ton of them get blocked. So like you look, Neto blocked, Gittins blocked, Caicedo blocked, Palmer blocked, Cucurella skies it, Gittins blocked, Palmer misses one. So like you've taken 7 shots from outside the box there, 5 of them have been blocked. Those blocks on the edge of the box start counters the other way. Like, that's really bad. And so one of the things that I am very much keeping my eye on, because I was concerned about it last season and I remain concerned about it, is how much can Chelsea get rid of the garbage ones? And I don't want there to be no shots from distance, because I think when you play a team who's defending deep, it is a legitimately valuable part of your attacking arsenal to have some decent looks from outside the area to like make the defenders come engage you, to open up space to play through or play behind or whatever. But it can't be everything. It can't be everything. So that's one thing that I thought was particularly interesting. I thought another thing that was particularly interesting, and I don't think it's on here, but it is on the FOMOB. If you look across the whole game, Chelsea were very good on attacking corners against the team who are a very decent set piece defending team. They're not amazing. They're not a huge team, but very decent. From 11 corners, they generate 0.6 XG. That is like 50% better than the average corner. You look across the number of chances. You have Marc Cucurella gets a shot at the near post. They really set up a very specific corner that effectively just involved crowding a whole bunch of players at this near post zone and then just putting clip deliveries into that crowd and saying, we'll win the header and you won't. And it was a pretty reasonable bet when you look at them overall. They get a good shot from Marc Cucurella that at the back post defends Fernandez, is a little bit more switched on. You get a great header at the back post. They have another one for Josh Achimpong that gets blocked, that like it's a goal if it doesn't get blocked. João Pedro gets a free header 5 yards out, middle of the 6-yard box that he skies. Like, there's another day where Chelsea score one or two corners and it's a pretty smooth sailing day. So I thought that was pretty good, because I think when you look at last season, the corners were better, but there was definitely room to grow. So that is one for me to keep an eye on as a positive. Now, as a negative, I think the thing that I'm like not worried about, but a thing that just, let's see, is that Chelsea have a very weird preseason this year, in that they are coming in fit because they have played all summer, but they're not super sharp because they didn't really do a preseason. They just did a regular 2 weeks of training because they were like, there's no point in us running. Now, maybe that's beneficial. I thought Chelsea actually hung around really well physically in this game. In particular, I loved that the subs we got were, I loved the subs we got. Esteval for Gittins, I thought was the right call. Delap for João Pedro was the right call. Andre Santos for Enzo was the right call. Malagusto for Reece James was the right call. I would have liked to have also done Tyree George for Neto later. But other than that, no problem. The thing for me that I would like to see, particularly in the case of Andre Santos, is like, can we get those earlier? Can we get those legs earlier? Because I think when those guys came on, particularly Delap and Santos, but I guess Gusto as well, I can't deny him, is that the last 10 minutes of the game, Chelsea just like absolutely piled it on. They controlled everything. They had all the legs everywhere. They spent the last, all of injury time with Andre Santos parked in the opposition penalty area. They were able to get one of your two defensive midfielders to live on the penalty spot, which I think is tremendously valuable. Let's see if we can keep that level up physically long term. Again, it's only 1 week. And let's see if that level of subs continue. Maresca started with good subs at the beginning of last year. Let's see. Let's see. Now, Chelsea play Friday against West Ham. Let's talk about West Ham. West Ham stunk. I would genuinely say stunk the place out against Sunderland. It was so bad in a way that I cannot describe. Now, was it actually that bad? Like on XG, it's pretty even. I think Sunderland are pretty fortunate to score the goals they do. It's like two very good headers, and then a shot that Hermanson lets in that maybe takes a deflection. I can't really tell, but you look at it and you're like, there is no world. That's a very unlikely goal for Hermanson to concede again. Now, the flip side of that is that you were playing promoted Sunderland, who won the playoffs and were like a plus 10 expected goal difference team last year and are just not that good. Like, again, you can look at the players they have, and Rolfs is interesting. Ballard is like probably not a Premier League level player. Schilt is probably not a Premier League level player. Mandava and Hume are probably not Premier League level players. Xhaka definitely is. I don't know what Siddiqui is. Alderete is probably pretty interesting. I don't know what Talbi is. I think Diarra is really interesting. I think Adingra is interesting. I think Isidore is interesting. But like, not a whole lot of talent here. I think interesting in the like 12th to 14th way, not in the like 4th to 6th way. And they just had nothing in possession. Even after they concede, they just get nothing as a team from West Ham, where like it's a 3-5-2 and like nothing happens. There's like some crosses from El Hadji Malik Diouf, their new left wing back, who is very good going forward, who cannot defend. Like, I don't know what their thing is. Now, what their thing is going to be is they're going to defend very similarly to how Palace defended, but it will probably start from a 5-3-2 instead of a 5-2-3. Now, what does that mean for Chelsea is that building 3v2, you should be very comfortable, especially when you build with a 3-1. And the temptation is that, like, oh, you can go 5v5-ish and, like, mark the three midfielders and then just be really aggressive on João Pedro. And, like, yeah, they'll keep it, but you'll be able to keep 5 at home and be fine. I think the difficulty is that as long as Delap is not playing, I think Chelsea's ability to link with Palmer in the 9 behind their midfield is like deadly, and you cannot live. So I look at West Ham and I say I'm not particularly concerned. I think Potter has set up against Chelsea very well in the past, but I think this team is not that close to Chelsea. So in terms of like prepping, what would I do? I'm going to start the exact same back four. I'm going to start James. I'm going to start Achampong. I'm going to start Chaloba. And I'm going to start Cucurella again. I thought Achampong was very good. I have absolutely no concerns there. And like, who else are you going to play? Even if Tosin is fit, like, I'd probably rather start Achampong, given it's like Bowen and fast guys. It's not like a big guy. I think you go Caicedo and Enzo again. I think Enzo was very poor in this game, and you could certainly talk me into, do we go Andre to like get Enzo up to speed? Because I think Enzo is just going to be a guy that, like, he takes a few, like, if he takes 3 weeks off, it's going to take him 3 weeks to get back up to speed. Like, he's not the fittest guy, and that's okay. Like, I'm not one of these people calling him fat, but I think that's probably one you want to think about. And then the other one to think about is the wingers. I think João Pedro is the starter. I'm not really thinking about Delap starting in this one. But I think the interesting thing is to talk about is the wingers, where, like, if you look at who gave you what from a lineup perspective in the three wingers who played. Gittins plays the first 54 minutes. He takes 2 shots, both are blocked. He creates 1 shot. I thought he was not underwhelming. I thought he was what I thought he would be, which is like lively when he has space. When he got room to run at Munoz and Chris Richards, he looked good. When he was receiving stationary, he really struggled to create separation, to gain speed, and often just like cut back into not dangerous moments. That's what he did at Dortmund. That's the same thing that happens at Dortmund. It's just the Bundesliga, so there's a lot more open space. He took some bad shots. I thought his movement off ball was like okay. He had a couple decent runs in behind. Like, there was one he ran in behind and just takes a crappy touch. I'd love to see a lot more of that. I don't think he should be starting, because While Neto, I also don't think is great, right? One shot from distance that gets blocked. He creates a little bit, mostly from dead balls. I think the thing with Neto is that because he can play both sides and because he's pretty resilient and responsible defensively, the floor is pretty high. Like if all he does is just like crash the goal line and rip crosses, you're like, okay, it is what it is. It's fine. But the real reason is that Estevao is just like the kid is real. He plays 37 minutes. He puts up 0.34 XG, puts up 0.37 XA. That is huge for a winger in a sub appearance. Not only is that huge for a winger in a sub appearance, like that is such a big number. Like I I don't even know I don't even know what to make of that for him. Um what's interesting is he's not that high on the FB ref one. So I'm going to have to see what the deal is with that. My guess is he's just not on the list, or he's not showing up for some reason. But I think when you look at what he did in his match for Chelsea, like, yeah, he just didn't show up in here for some reason. Or they're not giving him the XA, which I don't really know. Anyways, he creates separation so well for himself. He is so dynamic as a dribbler. He gets shots inside the box. He creates shots for others inside the box. Like, it's everything you want. Now, normally, I would say, like, give him some time, bed him in, and I suspect that's what Maresca will do. But I would say start him now. Anyways, that's all from me. We will stream sometime on the weekend or do something after the West Ham match. But hopefully things go well in that one, and we can start the season off 4 points, 2 matches, and not a bad place to be. Anyways, that's all from me. As always, enjoy the soccer.